Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to another Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to build in the world of Evergreen Harbour, which is the world that we got from the expansion pack The Sims 4 Eco Lifestyle, and I'm going to be building a realistic but slightly run down but still really cosy family home. So this house ends up having 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and it's built on a 30 by 20 lot. The actual house itself ends up being quite small, but I really like it, and I feel like it's one of them houses that is quite deceiving because it looks really short and sweet from the outside, and don't get me wrong, it is in the inside, like it's cozy, but I like it. But in terms of the amount of different people that can sleep in this house, with the 3 bedrooms, 2 of them have double beds in, and then one of them has a single bed and a bunk bed. So, I mean, you can fit a good amount of Sims in this house. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Sims in this house if you really wanted to. But this week, I just really fancied sitting down and just building something a little bit more realistic and also a little bit more on the rundown side of things. Now I am building this for my save file, and the family that I built this house for is definitely quite an interesting one, and the storyline that I've honestly just expanded on. Like, when you hear this storyline, you're going to think, hang on, like, it's family friendly, don't worry, but the Sims team basically planted the seed and I've just kind of expanded on the seed, and but we'll get to that shortly. But in terms of, yeah, the interior style of this house, I want it to feel a little bit nostalgic in a way. In my head, this family have never properly decorated their house. All of their furniture and everything that they've kind of accumulated, they've either found in a dumpster, you know, just like found in a bin somewhere, or it's maybe like hand-me-down furniture from friends or other family members like uncles and aunts and stuff. And overall, the inside the house, it's a little bit messy, it's a little bit chaotic in some areas, but no, I really like it. It just feels really homey and cozy at the same point of being a little bit run down. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this, and so I really hope you like it as well. But anyway, moving on from that and actually getting on and talking a little bit more about the build itself and also what I'm doing right now. So you can see that I'm currently almost like playing about with this little like side porch section on the build. Now the way that I built this house felt very backwards to me because I literally came in, placed down a little tiny room and then started with the windows, because one of like the reasons why I wanted to sit down this week and build something a little bit more on the realistic side of things is recently we got this base game update, and in this base game update we got, I think, like 2 or 3 different doors and then a handful of different windows. And for the windows, the majority of the ones that I've used in this house were from this base game update. I just haven't used them yet, and so I kind of started off this build by building a little room and then placing down these really lovely big windows at kind of like the front section. That ends up being, in the end, a bedroom. Currently, I've just shoved a dining room table in there. Ignore it. The dining room table ends up being in the kitchen. And also, actually, something I did on the dining room table in the kitchen is I made it look like there were cereal boxes, milk cartons, and then also like little bowls and stuff for the family members, which is a small thing and it feels a little bit silly mentioning it now, but it's just because I was on the subject of the dining room table. But yeah, I tried to put as much detail as I could possible into this build. It's quite relatively small lot. It's a 30 by 20, like I said, and I had around about 7 hours worth of recorded footage for this build. Some of the rooms I really went to town in, and one of the rooms, which I haven't even built yet, ends up being in the garage space, because for the Sims that are going to be living in this house, my save file, they're going to have a small business run out of their little garage, and this is where EA kind of planted the seed and I've just kind of expanded on it. So the family that I built this house for and who are going to be living in this house, my save file, are called the Harris family. Now the Harris family consists of a grandma or a nan, whoever you refer to your, I personally say nan, but some people say grandma, but there is an older figure in this house, if you want to put it that way, and then she lives here with her son called Cletus, his wife Faye, and their 2 boys. We've got one who's a teenager called Jeb, and then we've got one that's a little kid called Gideon, I believe is how you pronounce his name. And pretty much, right, this family live in the house, and it's quite a decent sized house, you know, like they're doing all right in terms of it's quite decently sized, not everything's all squished together and stuff, but only the mum has a job, the grandma doesn't have a job, and the dad doesn't have a job. And the funny thing about it is, in this house that they originally have, that EA built, right, EA built this, there is a room that has the blinds down, and there is multiple different planters in this room. Do you see where I'm going with this? Now, when I saw this, I basically took this idea and just ran with it and just basically expanded on this family storyline. And so in my head, the dad of his household, who is called Claters, he has never been able to hold down a job, right? He is someone that has had a few odd jobs here and there. And when I say odd jobs, I mean like he used to go around knocking on people's doors asking, you know, can I mow your lawn for 10 simoleons or something like that. I imagine that he probably also was someone that maybe used to work in like a mechanics workshop, or, you know, he dabbled in a few different random odd jobs. Very much a jack of all trades but a master of none, but he wasn't actually a master of anything, and he wasn't really a jack of all trades. He just tried to do whatever he could just to get a little bit of money and basically avoid having a proper 9-to-5 job. And then I imagined that one day he decided that he was going to start up his own little small business and run it out of his garage. Now, in the garage, I've made it so it is so cluttered in there. Like, I had 45 minutes of purely recorded footage for that just one room alone. And I was imagining that he sells beer, which is actually just juice fizz that your Sims can make for the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack. But in my mind, he crafts beer, right? He crafts beer in his little garage and it's open to everyone. There's a little side door by the pavement. People can just walk right in. They can buy beer. They also can buy multiple different random objects, like things for fabricating items from the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack, so multiple different kind of dyes. There is also woodworking items in there, and I also did place down a woodworking table, but then I also imagine that sometimes he might like to share his love of gardening with fellow residents of Evergreen Harbour, and so around the different areas of the garden there is multiple different planters. Now, in these planters, I purposely have already planted some quite special ingredients, and when I say that, it's all in-game like harvestables that your Sims can find in and around the different worlds. I placed down some special mushrooms, ones that we got from the Cottage Living expansion pack, because with that DLC there's like this spicy mushroom, or like this pink one, or this red and white polka dotty one, and basically if your Sims eat these certain mushrooms they go a bit loopy. So I placed down some of them in the garden planters, but then I also placed down a few different herbs, you know, bit of parsley, bit of basil, a little bit of sage here and there. Like, I placed down some herbs that this Sims family are growing. I also did place down like poison, fire leaf, and all the different special kind of mushrooms that you can find in the outdoor retreat world of Granite Falls, like the ones where you actually have to go on a bit of a hunt to find them, place them down into the garden. And I'm thinking that sometimes he likes to sell these beloved harvestables to maybe fellow gardeners, all right? And he sells them out of his little garage shop, which you can actually see I'm coming in over here and placing down kind of like some signage for it. Now, currently, the way that I built this, I've got two different signs that indicate like wine or some sort of like juice making thing. The one that is on the floor, so kind of like the chalkboard, I keep, but you see the little like square sign that looks like it's got almost like a bottle of wine, a glass of wine, and then some grapes. I do end up changing that when I playtest this build, and I changed this one that kind of indicates gardening. You know, this man likes to garden a little bit. He's got a love for gardening, and so I do end up changing that, so you will see that in the screenshots. But yeah, he sells all these random bits and bobs in his garage space. You would have already seen, because I completely spoke over it, but he's not the only entrepreneur in this household, because I imagine the youngest boy of the house, who is called Gideon, again I really hope I pronounced that correctly, but I made it so right out the front of the house, basically on like the pavement side or the sidewalk, whatever you call it, but I made it so he's got his own little lemonade stand. Now, in terms of the other household members, I imagine that there's a little bit of almost like tension between this family, and to be honest, I feel like the mum and the dad, or like the husband and wife of this household, probably should have got a divorce a few years back, and I imagine that they probably don't even really like each other that much, but they're the kind of Sims that going through a divorce and signing the papers and having to go through all that paperwork, too much work for them, they can't be bothered, and so they probably shouldn't be together, but they are together. But in terms of the little kid of his household, the one that's got the lemonade stand, I think that he probably looks up to his dad and thinks that his dad is the coolest man ever, right? And so that's why he's got his own little lemonade stand, because he saw his dad having this really successful business being run out of the family garage, and he wanted to kind of follow in his footsteps, but instead of, you know, selling what his dad does, he sells lemonade. And so I placed down this little like market stall thing at the front, and on it I placed down this like juice like tray thing. We got it from the Backyard Stuff pack. Basically your Sims can make lemonade on there and then you can stock it, and so he can stand out there after school, even if he does go to school. I'm not sure if he actually will go to school. I imagine that his mum probably doesn't care, and his dad's probably like, oh, you don't need school, like just follow in my footsteps kind of thing. But I imagine that if he did ever go to school, after he got back, he would spend his afternoons or like his evenings out front, yeah, selling lemonade or something. The little boy Gideon has the trait of being cheerful, and his skills are mostly just in social. I think it might just only be social, but I think that kind of goes well with the idea that I kind of had for him anyway, because I'm thinking you got to have some sort of social skills, you know, putting yourself out there on the pavement trying to sell lemonade to random strangers. And so I imagine that, yeah, that's probably how we got his social skills up. I do also picture that he tries to hang around his dad and his dad's friends quite often. Like I imagine that his dad's friends would often come over, have a few beers in the garage, you know, chit chat about random stuff. Sometimes they might pop upstairs and have like maybe little like poker nights and stuff, because on the upstairs hallway ended up being quite a big spacious area, and I didn't just want to place down a plant and call it a day, and so I thought I'm gonna make use of this space. And so I placed down like a little games card table where I picture they either do poker or maybe play like cards or something. I imagine that the kid of his household always tries to get involved with that and tries to, like, you know, make himself seem a little bit older than what he is or something along the lines of that. But moving over from that and actually getting on and talking about the mum of his household, who is called Faye Harris. Now, Faye is someone who is a freegan, gluten, and she's a goofball. And when you enter a brand new save file, she's the only member of the family that has a job, and it's supposedly how they get their income. In my version of her, she doesn't have a job anymore. By default, she's meant to be in the culinary career, which I always really struggle saying that word, but you know, like the chefy one, which is from Post Game. She's meant to be like level 6 of that or something, but in my version of her, I picture her to be a stay-at-home mum who basically just spends the majority of her days slumped on the sofa watching reality TV. I imagine that she rarely ever cooks, and you'll see when we move on and I actually do like the living room lounge section, I purposely placed down like a little tray with some microwave dinners, which they won't spoil, like they will stay there by default. They're ones that won't spoil over time, but I placed down some like microwave dinners in front of the telly, and I imagine that her husband probably comes in from the garage and doesn't even ask what's for dinner, because he always knows it's going to be something that they picked up from like Sainsbury's or Tesco's or something, and just whack it in the microwave. But yeah, I imagine that she's someone that spends a lot of time watching reality TV. I imagine she reads a lot of magazines as well, and so I placed down a good amount of magazines in this house. And I also was thinking at one point that she might have a little bit of a crush on Don Lothario. Now, I say this, I don't think she's ever actually met him. In my version of Don Lothario for my save file, I imagine him to be someone that is a little bit of a Z influencer, if that's the right terminology. You know, some people that always are trying to get on TV shows, and like, I imagine that Don Lothario on his little Instagram page will probably have the Sims version of, say for example, Channel 4 if you're in the UK, or like, I don't know, ITV or something, messaging him saying, alright, we've got a new TV show coming out, do you want to be a part of it? He would definitely go on Love Island. I'm sorry, but Don Lothario would 100% go on Love Island. That's ITV, not Channel 4. But either way, I imagine that she has watched him on multiple different shows over the years. And yeah, she's got a little bit of a crush on Don Lothario. Doesn't like her own husband, but just likes this man from Oasis Springs. But either way, moving over and actually getting back and talking about the dad, because I realised I completely spoke over his traits. So he is a freegan, a slob, and also family orientated, which I'm in two minds whether I should keep the family orientated one, which I know I just said him and his wife, you know, they're a bit like off and on, you never know where they're going to be, a bit unpredictable, that relationship. But the thing is, I have got a bit of a backstory for like Cletus's upbringing in a way, and so from his upbringing, I'm thinking that his goal in life is just to have a big happy family. That is his aspiration by like default, and so maybe I might keep the family orientated tray and keep it as it is, but then I also kind of want to make him lazy, because I can just picture him slumped in front of the telly on the sofa with a can of beer, eating a microwave dinner. Like, that's just how I picture him. But he is the son of the grandmother of his household, who is called Francine Spencer. Now, Francine Spencer is this nan who I have basically made quite a outgoing, quite free-spirited character. That was kind of like the impression I got from her by default from EA, but I've kind of expanded on it and I've basically made it so I imagine that Cletus growing up, he never knew who his dad was and probably still doesn't even know who he is. Now, the grandmother's traits are non-committal, romantic and outgoing, and there is like no sign of Cletus's dad or the father of her child in the family tree. And so I kind of got the idea and kind of got the impression that, okay, well, she's an outgoing character. She's quite free-spirited. What about if one day she was in a bar? I was personally picturing, by the way, that this family might have some ties to Chestnut Ridge, which I do try and make some references of that in the build. Like, I placed down little postcards, which I imagine are from like cousins still living in Chestnut Ridge. But I imagine that one day she was in the bar and she basically had a one-night stand and she doesn't know the man or person, and they just never reconnected, and so Cletus kind of grew up not knowing who his father was, and so going into his marriage he probably just really wants to have like a big happy family, but where he's never really had that, he doesn't really know how big happy families function. So maybe that's one of the reasons why him and his wife don't really get along. I'm not too sure what kind of background Faye's family would have. I haven't got that far into the storyline yet. Maybe she's going to end up having like a sister or something that could actually still be in the world of Chestnut Ridge, because I was thinking, that the whole family has ties to that world, or maybe they've just got a load of cousins that live in the world of Chestnut Ridge. But either way, one connection that I am debating making for my save file, and I'm not sure if you think I should do it or not, because it is a bit of a out there one. But basically, grandma of this house, so Francine Spencer, she kind of has ties to a pre-existing base game family that live in the world of Willow Creek, which is called the Spencer Kim Lewis family. Well, I say this, it could just be a complete coincidence, but in the Sims 4 base game world of Willow Creek, there is the Spencer Kim Lewis family that is a household that consists of 5 Sims. There is a mum, a dad, a grandma, a grandpa, and then also their granddaughter. Now, basically, to start the family off, there is Alice Spencer Kim, who is the mum of the household. She's an artsy girl. She's got a sleeve of tattoos. She's very free-spirited. She's lovely. But she's married to Eric Lewis, who, pretty sure he's unemployed by default, or I think he might be in the culinary career. Can't remember. He's got a bald head. He's a nice guy. My Sims are often friends with him. But basically, they live with his mum, Vivian Lewis, and then also Alice's dad, who is called Dennis Kim. I really hope you're following along with me. I can understand I'm throwing so many different last names at you, but basically, Eric Lewis, that is his full name. He is married to Alice Spencer Kim. That's her full name, but her dad is Dennis Kim. So where does the Spencer part come into Alice's name? Well, basically, if you read their household description, it mentions that Dennis Kim and Lydia Spencer, who by default, when you enter a brand new save file, she is nowhere to be seen, but basically that is Alice's mum. They got married and joined their last names, so Alice became Alice Spencer Kim, but then her mum and dad, so Dennis and Lydia, they divorced. Basically, I gave them a makeover for my save file ages ago. Like, they've literally been sitting in my little save file bin, if you want to put it that way, been waiting for me to build them a brand new house. And where I'd already given Lydia Spencer basically a whole new life, because by default when you enter a brand new save file she doesn't exist, where I wanted to follow along with the law, and for my save file I want there to be so many different family trees and so many different connections and stuff, I'd already previously made her. Then it came round to me giving the Harris family a makeover, and I looked into Francine and I was like, oh, hang on a minute, your last name is Spencer. I then went onto the Sims wiki and saw that there is also a potential connection between her and the Spencer Kim Lewis family, because in my mind, she could potentially be Alice Spencer Kim's mum's sister, so Alice Spencer Kim's auntie, if you want to put it that way. The connection is there, and also I don't know if it's just because they've both got grey hair, but where I'd already given Lydia Spencer a makeover, and then I had given, you know, Francine a makeover, I was looking at them thinking, you could actually pass off as sisters. And then I liked the idea of, well, I imagine that Lydia doesn't really have a proper relationship with her daughter Alice Spencer Kim, because she went down a little bit like an artsy route. I was thinking Lydia Spencer wanted her daughter to grow up and, you know, go into the city every single day, get her like a 9 to 5, maybe like finance job or something. But Alice Spencer Kim, she wanted to be an artist, you know, she wanted to express herself. And I imagine that she probably has a little bit of a bad or poor relationship with her mum. And then it kind of made sense to me, because her auntie, who could potentially live in this house, the grandma, Francine Spencer, she's pretty much like Alice. She's quite an artsy girl. I end up placing art easel in her bedroom, you'll see that shortly. But yeah, I'm debating whether I should make that connection or not, or if that's too much of a random connection and I'm only kind of doing it because of the similar last names. But then they also do kind of look a little bit alike, and I'm just in two minds about it. But I was really happy when I made that connection. But yeah, that is basically the grandma of his household. She is quite a free-spirited, artsy kind of person. I was debating at one point whether I should make it so she has a boyfriend, but I was thinking that the boyfriend's a little bit younger than her. But then I kind of decided against it. But maybe my safe hole, maybe she will have a few different romances with a few different like local Sims or something. But yeah, that is basically the storyline for the grandma of the household. The last Sim that I'm yet to tell you about is the teenager, who is called Jeb Harris. Quickly interrupting myself because I want to show you this little connection. On that mirror over there by the front door, that's where I tried to make reference to Chestnut Ridge. I don't know if you caught it, but I placed down a postcard that looks like it's got a horse on it. And to me, Chestnut Ridge is the world that we got the horse expansion pack, you know, so whenever I see that little postcard, I always just think it's from the world of Chestnut Ridge, where I was thinking that this family have like cousins and aunts and uncles and second cousins and like they've got a big family, probably, in the world of Chestnut Ridge. I just thought it would be like a nice little, almost like Easter egg to place by the front door on the little mirror. But yeah, the teenager of his household, he's called Jeb Harris, and when you enter a brand new save file, by default, for every single outfit that this boy wears, he's got a bag on his head. Now, whenever I do townie makeovers, it's actually kind of embarrassing the amount of time that I spend on each individual sim. Even if a sim that I plan to, you know, end up putting in a graveyard somewhere, like I just spend a lot of time in Creator Sim because I am not the best at it, I don't think. And so when it comes around to doing townie makeovers, I spend a lot of time in there. When it came around to Jeb, must admit, he was one of the quickest Sims I've ever given a townie makeover to, because the thing is, where he wears a bag on his head for every single outfit, when I took it off, I was like, oh, okay. Going to keep you like that then, because normally I'll like change the hair, and I did at one point debate giving him a little bit of stubble, you know, a little bit of fluff on his chin. Then I was like, well, actually, I don't feel like you need it. Like I want to keep you pretty much the exact same. For his full body, I literally just changed the colour swatch of his overalls. I did give him some shoes though. By default, for a few of his different like official EA outfits, he walks around with no shoes on, also no socks. So bless his heart, the bottoms of his feet must have been really, really hard. It definitely needs one of them foot scrubby things, but I did give him some shoes. I gave him the same shoes in multiple different outfits, which I did do for some other household members as well, because I'm thinking this family haven't got like money coming out their ears. They've got a little bit of money from, you know, Cletus's business that goes on in the garage, but they're not milking it kind of thing. And so I did give him the same shoes for the majority of his outfits. But yeah, Jeb, I barely even touched for his townie makeover, where by default he wears a bag on his head. When I took the bag off, I was like, I don't know who you are, and I don't feel like I need to give you a makeover because I haven't been staring at that face the past couple of years. I've been staring at the bag that he was wearing beforehand. So I pretty much kept him to be, yeah, the same by default. I say that, of course I did change the rest of his outfits. It was literally just like his everyday. I felt like what he was wearing was honestly perfect enough. I only changed the swatch of it just because I didn't want to look like I hadn't put any effort in, but I promise you, I put so much effort into all of my different townie makeovers. Like I say, it takes me hours. The other week, I spent 6 hours in Creator Sim for 2 different families. 6 hours, I'm not joking. Hand on my heart, dog's life. I think we've all got our like strengths and weaknesses when it comes to playing The Sims. And yeah, for me, I feel like Creator Sim is definitely a weakness, but besides the point, anyway, back to Jeb. So Jeb's traits by default when you enter a brand new save file, he is good and gloomy, and he's got the aspiration to find his soulmate. However, something kind of interesting is, even though he's got the soulmate aspiration, the extra bonus trait that normally ties it to the aspiration that your Sims has, his doesn't revolve around a soulmate. His revolves around music. He's got the Musa trait, if that's how you say it. Now, he does have a few skills. He's got level 3 in handiness and level 4 in piano. And when I was decorating his and his brother's room, because him and his brother share a room, but when I was decorating his room, he ends up having a bunk bed. And at one point I did debate whether I should place down a keyboard underneath his bunk bed, but then I was thinking, to be honest, he probably just does piano at school in like music lessons or something. I don't want to just kind of like take this idea that he, you know, he's got some skills in music and so he's going to one day become a musician. However, I was thinking that he is not a massive fan of the way that his family operates, if you want to put it that way. And there is also a little bit of reference to this, like originally in the game, because apparently the reason why he wears a bag on his head is because he's embarrassed and he's kind of like shameful because of what his family are known for. Also, sorry, interrupting myself again. This is the little like breakfast nook table section that I was talking about at the start. So I placed down these cereal boxes, which are from the kitchen clutter kit, but I used a swatch of them that looks like they've been opened and there's like little cereal droplets, if you want to put it that way, or like little bits of Cocoa Puffs and I don't know, Kellogg's and stuff on the table. And then for the bowls, I decided to use quite a, by default, fancy looking bowl that we got from the refined living room kit, but I sized it down so it's quite small to what it originally was, like the original size of it, and then I stacked one upon another one. And then for the milk, I actually ended up placing down 2 milk cartons. One is just from debug and just find it in the regular debug menu, but then the other one is one that we got from the Blast from the Past event, which I know it might sound silly having 2 milks in like different styles on the table, and personally I don't imagine that this family have multiple different milks in their fridge. No one in this household, I'm sorry, is drinking almond milk or coconut milk. They're all just drinking, to be honest, whatever they can find in the bin, because like I said, both the mum and the dad of this household are freegans and they will just pick stuff out of the bin and just eat it. Like, they actually don't care. But I use both of them because I purely placed down the debug like base game milk carton to start off with, and then when I was kind of like going through the decorations category, I realised that we had the Blast Past ones, but the thing is, unless you participated in that event, then you won't have them in your game. There was kind of like almost like a limited time bonus thing that the Sims team are doing, and so I thought, do you know what? I'm going to put 2 down just in case, you know, you might not have the Blast the Past event stuff in your game. There is still going to be a milk bottle on the table. But either way, getting back to Jeb. So, like I said, yeah, apparently the reason why he wears a bag on his head for pretty much every single outfit in the game is just because he's a little bit shameful of what his family are kind of known for. And so then when I was actually decorating his space in kind of like his portion of the bedroom upstairs, I was thinking, I imagine that he just probably wants to get out of his household, you know. His mum is someone who just sits in front of the telly, reading magazines, watching TV, probably drinking coffee and all the different beer that her husband makes. His dad is in the garage, you know, trying to get customers to buy all these different random things from him. His grandma is a little bit of a free spirit, probably has got a new boyfriend every other week. This is grandma's bedroom, by the way. You'll see shortly I add an art easel in there. But I was just picturing that all of the different people around Jeb are just so different to like who he is. Like I said, he's got traits of being good and gloomy, and I imagine the reason why he's got a gloomy trait is just because he's not a really big fan of the environment that he was kind of brought up in. And so I'm going to make it that one day he wants to grow up and join the army. And so in his bedroom, I placed down a few different like references to joining the military career. He probably sees it as some sort of get out of jail free card in a way, because the way that I imagine he wants to join the military, even though this is not actually how it works in the game, but I like the idea of him joining the military and he can leave the family home, you know, like he sleeps in the same room as his little brother. And I imagine that you know, they get on to some degree. They're not the best of friends, they just tolerate each other. And so I imagine that, yeah, to him, if he joins the army, it one shows like the strength and stuff that you need to have to be in that certain career, but then also secondly, he can, you know, go overseas and just kind of get away from his family. I imagine out of everyone, he is probably the closest to his grandma, but even then, it's a bit of a long shot because she's just such a free spirit kind of person. I imagine he doesn't even know where she is half the time. She's going to be down at like the local bar or something, or maybe with one of her newest boyfriends. But either way, that is pretty much the household that are going to be living in this house for my save file, the Harris family. I really hope that was all easy enough to follow along with. And also, I've been like inserting pictures as I'm going along, and I really hope it doesn't make it difficult to kind of I'm thinking the pictures make it feel a little bit easier to kind of keep on track who I'm talking about, and also it's kind of fun to show you some townie makeovers if I have done them. I haven't done every single townie in the game yet. It is a long process, like I said, but yeah, let me know if I should carry on doing my like descriptions of the households that are going to live in the houses like this. It's kind of like something that I'm trying recently, where I'm trying to attempt to do their makeovers before I actually sit down and show you them and, you know, build them a house. But yeah, also let me know what you think in regards to the grandma of this house being the auntie of Alice Spencer Kim. Like I said, they have the same last name, and I'd already previously made Alice Spencer Kim's mum already, like Lydia Spencer, she was already made. And yeah, when I gave Francine Spencer a makeover, like I said, I don't know if it's just because they both got grey hair, which sounds really bad, but I do see some similarities, but I don't know if I'm just losing it a little bit. But either way, moving on from that and actually getting back and talking about the build. So as you can see, I've done the whole entire downstairs. Hopefully you don't mind that I spoke over the majority of it, but now I'm moving in and started decorating the boys' bedroom. So this is the bedroom that both Gideon and Jeb would share, and this first little section over here with kind of like the checkered bedspread, this is going to be for Gideon. So I attempted to try and make some references to his kind of entrepreneur skills, you want to put it that way, because if you look closely underneath his bed, I placed down a wad of cash and then also a few different coins of what I'm thinking would be like simoleons and stuff, and I'm thinking that's all of his, I don't want to say pocket money because his mum and dad didn't give it to him, but that's all of his savings, if you want to put it that way, that he's accumulated over time from his little lemonade stand that he has outside on like the front pavement. It sounds really silly, but I was really happy with the idea to have some sort of like little lemonade stand for him, because like I said, I imagine that this kid really looks up to his dad. You know, he sees that his dad is this businessman. His dad is this businessman, and he just thinks his dad is the coolest man in the world. And I imagine he probably doesn't know the extent of the business that his dad does, but he knows that he sells, you know, beer, and he knows that he sells some like things that he crafted on the woodworking table. And I imagine at school he probably tells everyone that his dad is like the best dad in the world. And yeah, bless his little heart, he wants to one day grow up and follow in his footsteps. Maybe with the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack, there's a feature so you can kind of give a family business to someone, or give your small business to a family member or a friend. But maybe one day the dad of this household will leave his very responsible business to his little boy. But over here in his bedroom, as you can see, I placed down a teddy bear in one corner. The one that I use is from the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack, and then I also placed down a few like random toys kind of like scattered about by his bed. He hasn't got any like real kid activities in his bedroom, but I don't know if you noticed when I was talking, in the lounge room downstairs he has got a little tiny toy box, and so I imagine that if he ever did want to play with some toys, he would maybe do them down there. But over in this section, this is going to be Jeb's area of the bedroom. Now, like I already said, when I was decorating this section, I did debate at one point whether I should give him a little keyboard underneath his bunk bed, because he does have a few skills in piano, but then I was thinking, I don't really picture his mum and dad like being a massive fan of him, you know, trying to be Elton John on the piano. And so maybe it's something that he kind of keeps a little bit to himself. Maybe his mum and dad doesn't even know that he is actually quite skilled with the piano. Maybe it's something that he kind of keeps to himself, and when he's at school he can kind of go into maybe like the music room and play it in like his free time or something. But yeah, maybe his mum and dad don't know. And maybe his mum and dad are the kind of Sims that wouldn't really think it's a hobby worth pursuing, if you know what I mean. Like, I imagine his mum and dad are saying to him, you should really get into gardening because there's definitely business there, but he doesn't want to be a part of that. He's a little bit embarrassed about what his mum and dad does. But in his bedroom, it was very short and sweet, his section, because bless his eye, he's only got like a 3 by, I think, 3.5 square section of a bedroom. But in his bedroom, I did place down, like I said, some posters that kind of relate to maybe him potentially one day wanting to get into the military. I placed down one behind his computer desk, and then I also merged one into a wardrobe, which, by the way, when I came around to playtesting, I ran into an issue where my sim couldn't get up to the bunk bed because the wardrobe was a little bit too close to it, and so unfortunately I did have to remove that wardrobe. I did replace it with another one, but the way that I kind of did it in the speed build, I moved objects and mirror into the wardrobe. That still fully functions for like future reference, but yeah, it was just a little bit too close to the bunk bed, so it made the bed unusable, and so I did have to swap it out. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the hallway. Now, like I said, the hallway for the upstairs, it was quite a big space, and I didn't just want to, shove a plant in the corner and a side table and call it a day. I still wanted there to be some sort of gameplay up here, because realistically this is kind of like an extra room. And so I placed down a game card table, which I imagine the dad of his household and then also some of his friends would maybe of an evening sit around and maybe play like poker or something whilst they drink some of the beers that they've been crafting in the garage. But now, as you can see, I've moved on into one of the bathrooms in this house. Like I said, there is two. There is one downstairs by grandma's room, which I imagine she never really uses this bathroom upstairs, but then also it's just like a spare toilet kind of like by the entrance to the house. I always like, for if ever I can have the opportunity to have like a toilet by the front door, it's just really handy if your Sims are like popping out to work or just about to go to school or something. If there's a toilet by the front door, I just find for gameplay it's a lot easier. But yeah, like always, I only ever show you the furnishing for one of the bathrooms. But over here, as you can see, I'm trying to move objects, some what I'm picturing to be dirty towels hanging off a radiator. I just feel like that's so realistic. I mean, like, if I was going to my bathroom right now, I've got towels on the radiator. I don't know about you, but, and some people have like different opinions about this, after I get out of the shower or the bath, I like to wrap myself in a warm towel, which some people don't like, because some people get really hot when they get out of the shower or when they get out of the bath. But I like getting like cozy, like I like feeling jubbling. So in this bathroom, I just placed down some towels kind of like hanging off the radiator, and I placed them down in like different colours and stuff. The towels that I've used, if you're curious, they are from the Spa Day game pack, but also in this room as well, I placed down a shower and bath combo. The one that I've used is from the Parenthood game pack, and then also like a little desk vanity that's got loads of bits of like makeup and hairdryer and medicine and random combs and just random bits and bobs. And then I also did place down a rug in front of like the bathtub, but I purposely made it to look like it's got some sort of water stains on it. Maybe someone had recently just got out of the shower and maybe the stains in the bath rug are like water droplets, or maybe the bath rug is just so old. Like I said, I really don't imagine that this family has really ever furnished their house. They have just collected furniture pieces from here, there and everywhere. Like, a lot of this furniture I imagine is like hand-me-downs from people. I imagine that they maybe got a few pieces in like a garage sale, or maybe on Facebook Marketplace or something, or maybe just in a bin somewhere in Evergreen Harbour. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into the last room, which is the parents' bedroom. Also, complete side subject, but I'm really sorry if all of a sudden it sounds like I am on the Discovery Nature channel or something, because I've got a group of, I think they're starling birds outside my window, and they're baby ones because it's that kind of time of year, innit? But they are just chirping, and I don't want to open my window and scare them off. There's bird feeders pretty much outside of my bedroom, so that is why, if it sounds like I am currently a part of the Discovery, Animal Planet channel, that is what that is. Apologies if you can hear like some chirping or something. But either way, in here, as you can see, I decided to go for the Horse Ranch expansion pack bed, and then I also used the same like DLC for the wardrobe. The wardrobe looks a little bit more rough around the edges, and it definitely looks like someone has picked that up out of the bin, just because it looks so weathered. But even out of like the context of trying to make this house feel a little bit more rundown, I just still really like that wardrobe. I feel like in The Sims we only really have maybe like 4 or 5 different wardrobes at this point, whereas chest of drawers, we've got so many different chest of drawers, and so whenever we get a new wardrobe, yeah, I just really appreciate it. But either way, in this room, as you can see over here, I'm just going to come in and basically clutter up these chest of drawers, finish the room off by adding in a bookcase, and that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or you can just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedbuilding video. Bye guys.